Hi, welcome to Community Buzz. We're here in Mystic in July, and it's the height of the bee season, and I'm here with my neighbor and friend George Zvara, who is a beekeeper, and we're going to take a look at his hives in the season when it's more appropriate to be opening up and taking a look. So thanks for joining us, and thank you for doing this, George.
Yeah, certainly, Peter. Anytime. Lots of fun. Welcome back to Community Buzz. For you faithful viewers, you may remember we were here in October for our last episode when we looked at the apiary, but it was too cold to actually open up the hives. I think it was around 50 degrees or maybe a little less, and bees don't like to fly at that temperature. But now, as Peter had mentioned, we're in July, high summer. Temperatures are well above 50. Today, overcast, a little humid, probably 78 to 80 degrees or so. Good weather for bees, and so we're going to do a hive inspection here. So we're going to smoke them a little bit to let them know we're coming. Calms the bees down, and we're going to open up the hives and look at some frames, try to find the brood, babies, drones, the males, honey, maybe some pollen, and if we're lucky we'll find the queen. And then we're going to feed them, which is what we do right now. With that, if you want to go back there, and I know there's a queen in here. So, actually, here. I'm just trying to look for the queen here. Just so I know this is a small number of frames, and chances are much greater that we'll find the queen.
So do you take those out of a hive, or is that just the start of a hive?
I did. I keep a couple queens in case of emergency, in case I lose queens and they can't generate their own. Yeah. So I keep, there she is. Okay. There she is. So, what we've got here, we've sort of gone back from where the main apiary is to sort of another part of the yard, and I got the truck here laid out so we can kind of zoom in on frames specifically and find and kind of look close up various aspects of frame. You know, what does pollen look like? What does honey look like? What does nectar look like? What's a queen look like? And a drone and a worker bee. And so we're going to take out some frames from that I've taken from the apiary, and we're going to kind of look at close up. And the first thing we'll do, of course, everybody wants to know is where's the queen? Where is the queen, and what does a queen look like? And so here is a frame of bees, and if you look closely here, right here you can see a blue dot and the queen. So that's the queen. She's kind of making her way. She's now is thinking about going to the other side. Remember, all this is in the darkness, so the hives are not light, are not open to the light. And so all of their work is really done in darkness. And so when you bring them out, particularly the queen, out to the light, it kind of throws them off a little bit. They don't particularly like that. So
you can see that she is bigger than the other bees.
You notice that, right? So her abdomen is kind of tapered and much longer. There she is. She's laying an egg right now. She's kind of twitching her abdomen. She's found a cell that she likes, and she's lowering that abdomen in there, and she's kind of twitching around, and an egg is being laid right now. About the size of a grain of rice, or as somebody said, the size of a grain of rice that Barbie would use. So anyway, there she is. And Beekeeper.
And the blue dot is something you've added to identify.
Well, yes, I would like to say that she is born with a blue dot, but no, they don't work. They don't work like that. So what beekeepers do is they mark the queens, and there's a standard color convention of blue and red and yellow, green and white. This year, 2015, is blue, is a blue year. So to help find the queen, we give her a little color proportional to the year. And you can just imagine, without that color, you would have to find that bee in 50,000 bees. So that's a little problematic and difficult. So anyway, there she is. Looks like she's laying again, which is good.
Good.
So I want to keep her laying. There's not a lot of bees on this frame here, and that's because this is from a nucleus, a nuc, a mini hive that I have, and I keep these, couple of these, with queens in them as reserves. So in case my other hives, they lose a queen through whatever mechanism, I have a queen ready to go and insert. And they'll accept the queen. By and large, they'll accept a foreign queen given the right circumstances and the right procedures and protocols. So here's the fun part. We found the queen. You can see bees sort of defer to her. So bees sort of put their face to them. So they acknowledge her presence. They put their face to her. They tend to her. They groom her. They feed her. They clean her. And she is just on a mission to lay eggs. That's her job. And so looks like she's laying another egg there. So she's well on her way, making the future for the hives, and that's a good sign.
And so she has been fertilized for life?
Yes. So she is mated. She's a mated queen, as it's called, and she's been mated with these drones, these couch potato bees that I mentioned. And when she's born, she from a hive, she's a virgin. She doesn't, as it's called, she doesn't have any sperm, and so after a couple of days, she goes on her honeymoon, her mating flights, for a couple of days, and she will mate on the wing with drones from all other hives. The drones, believe it or not, hang up in the sky, a place called drone congregation areas, and they just sort of hang out together. It's the bar, it's the pickup joint in the sky, believe it or not, where several dozen drones will fly together in this drone congregation cloud, as it were. She's looking for the boys are looking for her, and she goes into the cloud and they mate on the wing, and she'll mate with maybe a dozen for a given flight, come back home, rest up, get fueled up, get fed, kind of do it again for another day or two. So she'll mate from 3 or 4 days. Weather's got to be good. That's another thing. So she'll mate 3 or 4 days with about maybe 7 to a dozen males on a given flight. So and she'll store that sperm for the rest of her fertile period, for fertile life, which could be up to 3 years.
So there's one mother to a hive for a lot of fathers.
Yes.
And that's to keep the hive genetic.
It's the genetic diversity, and so they're all brothers. They have the same mother, but as you pointed out, Peter, but they have different fathers, and so there are different little, I don't want to say subspecies. That's purely wrong, but sub-elements of which sperm a given bee has come from. So
we have a yellow jacket.
Yeah, that's
right here,
there.
Stealing honey. Or?
Yeah, that's actually a good. Yep, she's a pirate. She's robbing, and so here's for viewers to note the difference between a yellow jacket, this offender right here.
White or yellow with black stripes.
Black,
the bees
black.
Are more golden color.
Right, black.
You
saw the black.
Nice to bees, and yellow jackets. You can do whatever you want.
Yellow jackets are a bit more problematic. So
they will also sting you repeatedly. When bees will sting you once, and they're dead.
And that's it. So anyway, here's our queen. She's doing her thing. And so now it's time to move on to the next frame.
Okay. Thanks for finding the queen, George. That's nice.
Well, I think sure, Peter. I mean, that's what everybody sort of wants to do. And we found a couch potato. So, couch potato, the drones. These guys who's got one lucky job in life, and it's not to clean the hive or to find honey or do anything. Their job is to fertilize the queen. And so the drone, of course, is now moved since I just placed.
Talk bad about it, he disappears.
They do. And so forgive me while here's another offending yellow jacket. So Peter, what we're looking for, there it is. Okay, so right here, see this fat bee here? See this one here? This one right here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Big black eyes.
Yeah.
Fat body right here. And he is right next to a worker bee, much smaller. So he's making his way. He's doing nothing. This one right
for
here.
Food, probably.
Right.
and
He is not doing any work in the hive. He doesn't tend the nursery. He doesn't do guard duty. He doesn't make honey comb. Doesn't forage, and all that drone does is fertilize the queen at the right points of time. So the drones at a particular point in the season are actually a major drain of resources on the hive. So coming into, say, August, it's becoming too late for queens to get fertilized, and more importantly, for not enough time for them to raise a family, another hive, before winter comes. And so the value of the drones decreases, and their value at that point of the season, it becomes less and less, decreases, and they'll evict the drones. So they'll literally kick the drone, drag the drones out from the hive, discard them, they'll drop to the ground, they'll die. No longer needed. They're a drain of pollen.
Again, the community becomes much more important than the individuals. So
exactly.
the community's trying to save itself.
Exactly.
They're not worried about the drones.
So every life is precious in the grand scheme of things. Every bees, you know, we don't indiscriminately kill bees. But when you count 10 bees, what you tend to realize the collective, the organism is the collective, is the hive. And so what's important is not an individual bee. Witness a bee stinging you. She commits suicide. She stings once, her abdomen is ripped, the stinger is left in there as well as part of her abdomen. She commits suicide on behalf of the hive. And so they'll even discard queens when she's not fertile enough. You know, the mother of the hive, she's done for her fertility, and for the benefit of the hive and the success of the hive, they'll get rid of her and generate another queen. So, okay, so what we got on this frame here as well, we saw the drone, and this is honey here. All of this business here, sort of capped. If you can score it, you can see it sort of oozing out. That's honey that they've made for their use, and it's not uncommon in a brood frame, which is what this brown here is the brood. We'll get to that in a second. But on the corners, here and here, they'll put their stores of honey, and that's their carbohydrate resource. And then here is the broods, is the babies, the future worker bees. So the queen has laid an egg. In 3 days, the egg is hatched into her larvae. Little grub, kind of the shape of a comma on a piece of paper, typeset. That grows and grows and grows. It's about day 8 or so. They cap it with wax, and they'll cap the structure here, and in there the larvae will then pupate into a pupa, and then for a worker bee, 21 days later she emerges. She will be born, and if we're lucky, we may find some bees being born in real time here as we watch it.
So when in the process they need food?
They need food when they're a larvae.
So when they get to be a larvae,
So yeah, when they're an egg, the part of the egg is some yolk in business in there that they can consume, and then when fourth day, the bees feed them royal jelly for about a day and a half. And then after 3.5 days, they continually feed them other resource, other nutrients in there for the larvae. So they feed them for about maybe 7 days or so, and then they're capped, and then the pupa's on their own. I've read a report where they actually do somersaults in the capping for some reason, and so this pupa will kind of do somersaults, maybe a dozen somersaults spins a cocoon and does somersaults, and so a lot of interesting things go on. So anyway, this is a brood frame, and it's in not bad shape. Here's the other side of it, and some more brood, and I can tell here, you can see this was all filled with brood at one point in time, and now they're empty. So the bees have been born from those frames, from those cells.
and then they start right over again.
Yeah, they'll clean them out. Maybe not immediately, but they'll clean it out. The queen's got to get there first, so she's got to kind of make her way there, you know. But they'll clean it out, You got another offending yellow jacket there.
Yeah.
Again, notice the difference between that black.
They do seem to try to throw the yellow jackets out too.
Yeah, yeah. They kind of know who belongs in the hive, and then other bees will rob, as it's called. So bees from other hives will come in on a weaker hive and try to steal this precious honey here. That's called robbing, and that's actually not a good thing for various reasons. Okay, so let's go to another frame. Oh, we found the queen from another hive. There's the queen from the other nuc that I had here. So, lucky. So, here it is. So, can you find the queen? Right there. There she is. So, we had two of these baby nucs up here, so we can film them in close-ups here. And we had difficulty in finding this queen early on as we were preparing for the show. But there she is in her glory, and all of this is filled with bees, with babies, and so that's the reason why I wanted to bring this particular frame out with you. But look at all of these bees that are in. That's the future of the hive right there. That's a good sign. So all that brown stuff is, and that will go continue across the whole frame. So those are worker bees. Now down in here. You see these sort of hemispheric, there's one there, and there's another one or two there, these sort of hemisphere jobbies here. That's the brood structure of the drones, those couch potatoes male guys. Much bigger, hemispherical caps at the end of it, and those are baby drones that are being born right now. Another interesting piece on this comb here.
Those eggs different to make them drones?
They're not fertilized.
They're not fertilized.
They're not fertilized. So when the queen, she lays an egg, we saw her laying her egg before, so down her oviduct comes the egg, and through her spermatheca, the sperm canal, she drops those sperm, donated a year ago, whatever it was, she got mated. The sperm and egg come together, it's fertilized, becomes a female. She just drops an egg in a drone cell. And she knows it's a drone cell because the cell is actually slightly larger.
Okay.
The bees know how many drone cells to make. I mean, so they decide we need 7% drones or something like that. They'll figure out how many drones they want to make.
And does she know to stop making drones?
No, when she does. She knows when to stop. So even though you'll have empty drone cells in there, she'll kind of know it's August. It's too late in the game for me to do that. Okay. Another interesting thing on this frame, besides the queen, there she is right there. She's kind of moved to the side. Is this structure here, and this is a sort of peanut-shaped pendulous thing. Look how different that is. So you think that's a mistake? Doesn't look like the baby thing here. Doesn't look like an empty comb. Doesn't even look like the drone with the hemisphere cap. This is a queen cell. So this is where they would make a queen. For some reason, the bees decide on their own, and then we need to even though we have a queen, she's doing her thing. We need to ensure the viability of the hive. We're going to make a queen cell, and it kind of looks like that. The entrance is on the bottom, through here on the bottom there, and so I'm not too sure whether there's actual egg in there or larvae or whether it's filled. But this is the structure that they would use to create a new queen when and if. So this is kind of like an emergency, an insurance.
Hive insurance.
Hive insurance, as it were, for the queen. And so there she is, kind of plodding along over here.
So it's the same fertilized egg?
Yes, same fertilized egg, and so
by the food it gets and the size of it.
That's a whole nother discussion. Quite fascinating. In a nutshell, she lays an egg in that cell. The hive decides that they need a new queen. In 3 days, that egg hatches into a larvae. They just feed that larvae another 12 hours of royal jelly. So rather than feeding it for 12 hours, they feed it for 24 hours, maybe 36, just a little bit longer, that royal jelly. And what that does, it turns on the genes in her ovaries and suppresses other glands in the bee. So like the wax glands, you can't make wax, and so it suppresses, by the additional feeding of that royal jelly, suppresses certain glands, certain genes, wax production, for example, and opens up other things like the such as their ovaries, and all that's the difference in the queen is just that they feed it royal jelly for slightly extended period of time, and then they build the structure for her to live in, and she'll be born in 16 days. from the time she's laid an egg until she hatches out. And so if they were really needed to have a new queen, called supersedure, they would have about a dozen of these peanut structures scattered through the hives. So we only have one instance here and through the other frames I've seen, so they're not, this is sort of an emergency thing. So this is a sort of a, I'm going to say anomaly, but they're not worried about replacing the queen. So let's swap this one out with one more. And I will talk about honey production. So here's a hive, not a lot of bees on it, but I find this hive of interest, and perhaps you will too. First of all, it's new. You can see how bright yellow the comb is, the wax, as opposed to the darker brown the other combs have been. That indicates that this is relatively new wax. So it got brown by staining. Bees walking on it, just bringing pollen and dirt and such, and it's just sort of it's like a dirty carpet, as it were. And so here, this is all fresh wax. At the top, you can see freshly capped honey. So all of this is capped honey in here, and you can see it'll ooze out. And bees will fix this up, so even when we sort of damage it a little bit, they will fix it up in no time. And so this is capped honey here. You can see a couple more. These cells are uncapped at the moment. They're going to be capped in the next couple hours or so. Down in here, you may be able to see some glistening fluid in there, and that is the nectar that's brought from the fields, and they're in the process of evaporating the excess moisture from the nectar. And when it comes to about 18% moisture content, then they'll cap it, much like that. And they evaporate the moisture by fanning it using their wings and fanning the moisture out. So, which means that high ventilation is a critical thing. So you need a ventilating process within the hive, but that's another discussion point. The other interesting thing here.
So there's another process. Do they actually add anything to the
bee spit?
A little bit of bee spit.
A little bit of bee spit in there. Okay. That's a highly technical term, of course.
Yes.
So they capture nectar and put it in their honey stomach. It's a little reservoir. They visit our flowers, as you know. They take nectar from that, put in their honey stomach. It's a little sac that's in there, holds about 50 milligrams of milliliters of water, I think. And they bring it back, regurgitate it with a little bit of bee spit. They actually will transfer it to another bee. The foragers will bring it back and transfer it, regurgitate it out to another bee, take it. That bee then figures out where in the hive it goes, and the forager goes off for her next adventure. That's her job. The forager is not, her job is not to make honey. It's just
lots of specialization.
Exactly.
Everybody has their little niche.
Exactly.
And the wax,
it's actually,
the wax, you say, is something that's formed by the bees?
Yes, the bees will, nurse bees, anywhere from ages of 3 days or so to maybe 3 weeks. They have a very fertile wax glands that's on the front end of their thorax, and they use honey, and they generate this wax. The substance comes in little platelets, and they move it by their legs to their mouth, and then they formulate they make the honeycomb structure by bringing these secreting wax through their glands, making plates, bringing it up to their mouth parts, and then fashioning it into the honeycomb structure as we know. And they know how to do this. No one teaches them this. They know how to do this right off the bat. It's another quite interesting thing of nature is, bees instinctively know how to do this business.
And do they reuse wax as a damaged or something? Can they reuse the wax?
Not really. They will reform it. So I can if I damage the wax comb, score it. They'll fix it. They'll fix the into the honeycomb structure. But I don't believe that they chew down wax to bring it to another hive. Once it's in place, it's in place. Here's sort of an interesting thing. I told you it was new wax that's being made. We just flipped the frame over. Down here you can see there's no wax. And this is what we call foundation. So beekeepers will put this in the frame, this sort of business down in here. You can see it on the sides here. There's a
It's
frame
like
here.
a thick sheet, right? When you put it in there.
Yeah, it's foundation.
Double-sided pattern.
Yep, double-sided. It has the imprint of the hexagon of the bees there, and it kind of gives them a starting place. They would be able to do this without this structure. It's more for the beekeeper, and making sure that the combs are straight, and that
I think
it's
you said
uniform.
before that these are all designed for the optimum space for the bees and for being able to take the frames out. And,
Yes,
and
that's called bee space. And here's another frame here. And they're designed to go like this, back to back. And this distance, designed so they fit in a frame on a hive body like this.
Yeah.
But
It's just the space
it's
between.
that space. Yep,
Even when they fill it up, there's room for them to get through.
3/8 of an inch. It's called bee space. It's the Goldilocks spacing, not too big, not too small. And with that spacing, they won't put any burr comb, any extraneous comb in there, or wax, any wax in there. So that's the bee spacing, and that's business is done by these shoulders here. So this frame, there's some thought going in. It looks simple, but there's some thinking going on to these frames. And this bee space, the discovery of this is attributed to Professor, actually the Reverend Lorenzo Langstroth, who was a minister at Yale. They moved to Ohio later on.
Connecticut.
He's a Connecticut boy, yeah. Actually from Massachusetts, but he did his religious work at Yale. And he's well known in beekeeping circles, one of the modern fathers of beekeeping. In fact, he designed what we call the Langstroth hide. This is the hives that we all know. These are pieces of it, the frames associated, all based on this bee spacing, and the fact that you could have frames that move the honey around.
Yeah, and the height is determined by
right.
ease of use.
Yep. Here you can see the glistening. Nectar. And the
George,
way.
I think off camera you may have mentioned how many bees it takes to produce honey. And
Oh yeah.
Trips.
Right.
Could you recap that for us?
Sure, certainly. Sure. So honey is really a precious source. We all like honey. Bees like honey. But it's really a precious resource that we should acknowledge our bees. It takes 12 bees to make a tablespoon of honey. A bee in her lifetime can only generate about 1/12 of a tablespoon. So 12 make a teaspoon.
Foraging bee.
It's teaspoon. I might have said tablespoon. It's a teaspoon. Teaspoon. Smaller spoon. Teaspoon. 50,000 miles they have to fly as a collective to make a pound of honey. So that's not individual bees going to fly 50,000 miles. It's the hive as a collective. That's around the world at least once, maybe once and a half, to make a pound of honey. And they'll visit tens of thousands of flowers to do that. So and one pound is only 12 ounces. So honey is pretty dense, pretty heavy. 1 pound's about 12 ounces. This frame, if it was filled of honey, would weigh 12 pounds. And this is not filled with honey. This is a brood frame. But you want to go into the season with lots of honey for their use. And that's about 120 pounds. For our neck of the woods, we want our hives to go into the wintertime with about 100 to 120 pounds of honey. So about 10 of these frames filled with honey. That's their only fuel and food during the wintertime.
Unless you have something else you want to share, we'll probably wrap this up.
No, I think that's our observation of the hive in July. And
This has been great, George. Your first sentence was probably more than I've forgotten over my experience of beekeeping. It's coming back to me, thanks to you. But really informative, lots of interesting stuff. I guess the term busy as a bee applies to beekeepers too. Busy as a beekeeper as well as the bees, because there's a lot involved. Thank you all for watching Community Buzz. And this is, I think, our third program on this topic, and we have some more coming. So I hope you're enjoying it, and thanks for joining us, and be well.
of light. Okay. Were we not recording? We weren't.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing that happened last time. I get so fascinated by the whole thing.
Okay.
Hello.
Oh, okay. So that was the practice for the practice.
Yeah,